Esta conferencia comenzará a grabarse.
So, welcome everybody to this morning session of the European Alliance Against Coronavirus. I will make a brief introduction just to help those that are new to our sessions, okay? This is a collaborative forum organized by the European Commission with us, the European Cluster Alliance, and with a strong support from EURADA and many other active institutional organizations. So this is open. This is that is the key idea, to be able to share information and discuss. But it's true that we are focusing on how can cluster and a collaborative environment help on the achieving of the goals that the European Commission is, and the member states and regions have for the next years. And this month, especially this month, we are speaking about the national recovery plans, the new industrial ecosystems, and how can we integrate all those factors in excellent proposal, excellent projects, and meaningful actions. So, in order to speak about that, we will have today three main speakers. One from DG GROW, Titas Anuskevicius, and two from different clusters. So one is Patrick Villemors from Plastipolis, and Athanasios Konstantopoulos from the third in Greece. Anyway, after their speeches, we will open the dialogue to all the attendants, and so please, my recommendation is to participate, to all your ideas, your suggestions, or even challenging what has been said. Okay. While we speak, while the speakers participate, please put your mic off if you are not contributing. Okay, that will help us to ensure the quality of the session. Okay. I don't know if we have with us Titas. Are you there?
Yes, unfortunately on a phone now I'm struggling to launch GoToMeet, but I'm here on a phone.
Yeah, it's quite usual for the computers in the EC to have problems connected to. One possible alternative would be to use, if you have a smartphone, to download the application. But anyway, we are hearing you. I don't know if you wanted to share one presentation or not.
No.
Okay.
No presentation.
So, the quality of the sound is good. So if you don't mind, you could participate from the phone.
Okay.
Is that right?
Yep.
So thank you, Titas, for joining us, and the floor is yours.
Okay, so good morning. It's a pleasure to be with you, ladies and gentlemen. I wanted to basically give a couple of words to start with about energy-intensive industries and the ecosystem where we're going to be talking today. So basically, what we're dealing here is industries which are very much at the core of European industry. So we're talking about sectors like chemicals, steel, pulp and paper, plastics, mining, refineries, cement, wood, rubber, non-ferrous, glass, ceramic. So basically these ceramic sectors, so these are the sectors sort of at the core of European industry. What they have in common is they quite interlinked between themselves. They are main industrial users of energy and raw materials, responsible for more than half of the EU industry industries' energy consumption and currently are also major emitters of greenhouse gases. These industries contribute somewhere around 5.5% or a bit more of EU value added. They employ around directly employ around 7 million people, and obviously are at the core of value chains which are employing many more. There are around 400,000 companies in this ecosystem. And it's quite diverse because on one side, in somewhere like refineries in Europe, you'll have around 40 refineries only. At the same time, in sort of wood products manufacturing, you'll have 100,000 of SMEs. So it's very diverse also in terms of oversize, even though overall, as in any other activity, SMEs make majority of companies. I'm talking majority, we're talking about 99% or so. So what we do, obviously they are, as I mentioned, they are supply intermediate products to each other and to many downstream sectors of the economy, but not only, they also very closely integrated with energy providers as well as waste and recycling industries, due to the need for secondary raw materials or a capacity to develop sort of recycling technologies. While facing its own challenges, when we talk about sort of green transition, this ecosystem is basically an enabler and a driving force for greening both upstream and downstream industries and all value chains around them. As I say, well, if you want economically sort of a business case to have a hydrogen run bus in a city, it's much easier if you have a big steel plant using hydrogen, and sort of a cost of what it will cost to have that hydrogen available will be much lower. So here we basically this ecosystem is a real machine for greening our society. If we're talking about challenges this industry facing now, and of course it's also related to who the customers of many of these industries are. So they were hit hard during the COVID crisis, and especially because the key customers for most of them are automotive and construction sectors, because as soon as you think what goes into the car, you're going to start seeing steel, aluminum, copper, rubber, plastics, and so on. And if you think what goes in building a building, you see right away, cement, wood, and so on, steel, and so on. So the collapse sort of demand and impact of crisis in these, especially these two sectors, but of course, obviously not only, really affected adversely this ecosystem. So I think that's probably I'll stop here in terms of describing this ecosystem, and if I'll add more if conversation requires that.
Thank you very much, Titus, for the explanation. I need to confess that, at least for me, it's one of the ecosystem that is more difficult to grasp. I don't know why. It's, there are some industries that, for example, I think that you mentioned wood, no? And
yes.
For me, it's not so intuitive to ubicate wood in this ecosystem. So thank you for the information. I am sure that we will come back to you soon, okay, with questions, okay, and ideas. But now, before introducing the next speaker, I will invite Marek, if you don't mind, to present us how are clusters involved in this ecosystem.
Yes. Thank you, Antonio. So basically, when we look at our European Cluster Collaboration platform and the data that we have, it looks like we have 62 industrial clusters which are operating in this energy-intensive industries. And then you see this paper and packaging pulp technology. Actually, paper and pulp is a very energy-intensive industry. Non-metal mining, upstream, downstream chemicals, iron and steel, steelworks. So they represent about 7,000 members, including 4,300 SMEs. So most of them in our database are located in from clusters in Spain, France, Germany, and some in Belgium. So I think this is the picture as clusters are concerned. Yeah, some of them, 7 of them have a gold label of good quality management, and of course they support the same principal services as the other clusters from other ecosystems, particular facilitation, the access to technology and support of knowledge transfer. So, Antonio, that's it for our energy-intensive industries. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Marek. Thank you very much. Perfect. And now it's time to welcome Patrick Villemors from Plastipolis. Bonjour, Patrick.
Good morning, buenos días.
I'm really happy to see you. And welcome to Patrick is a new member of our board of directors in the European Cluster Alliance. So congratulations from yesterday.
Thank you. It's a big pressure for me.
I am really glad, Patrick. Should I give you the presentation rights, or would you prefer that I share your presentation?
If you can make it, maybe it's more easier.
Okay, I will do that.
So thank you again for the invitation. We're very pleased to share our, let's say, situation and how we, let's say, went through the crisis and now make our best to be active in the recovery phase. And we are among the 62 clusters mentioned by Marek before, connected to energy-intensive industry. However, we are not pure, let's say, the major sector. We will see figures later on about energy consumption, but of course, material, plastics, rubbers, and polymers are very, let's say, using quite a lot, let's say, material, let's say, raw material, but also energy. If you can go to the next slide, Antonio, please. So according to the scope of these daily meetings, I will just let's say comment and give our, let's say, views and experience according to the setting of this industrial ecosystem, and focusing on energy intensive sectors, and how we are currently with our region, with our central government, with other European cluster, we are making our best to implement the European Recovery Plan and the National Recovery Plan as well. The next slide, please. So plastic and polymer industry, it's a broad sectors. It's more than 60,000 companies in Europe. And as said by the Industrial Association of Plastic Producer in Europe, Plastic Europe, it's a really let's say, a complete value chain from, let's say, the feedstock raw material to production of polymers. And later on to process this material up to manufacturing and converters making technical part or any kind of products. And of course, especially for plastics, but for any kind of industry or material, the main focus the last months have been and is still today circular economy and how to deal with end of life and to find a way to let's say have a circular system. And I think it's very much connected to the line of EU next generation to be as far as possible to meet these green, sustainable and digital challenges. As you see, polymers and plastics are in many sectors. I think it's also very close to what I said, Marek, before. I think it's close to other family of materials, steel, copper, aluminum, and others. Maybe one particularity for plastics is packaging, and that is, of course, in the front line of consumer and user concern in terms of recycling, especially. But also building and construction is very strong. Automotive in terms also of innovation. So we have to deal with very diverse sectors, and on the sketch you see that energy is one building blocks. Of course, it's a need at different steps of the value chain, and of course in the next steps, and especially toward the green economy, is to use let's say as less and as the most relevant way energy at the different step of this value chain. So if you can go to the next slide, please. Yes. So as I said, polymer and plastics and rubber industry are not the top of the list energy consumer in the different ecosystem. And of course, you see that I took this figures from 2 years ago seminar organized by the European Commission with regard to SESCAM and other say European platform in terms of energy strategic plan. And as we are, let's say, we are embedded in this chemical and pharma sectors. That is, as a whole, a major block for energy consumption. It's clear, and we are, let's say, there is a challenge and a big. And maybe in the next step with chemical clusters, with other partners, we can really go in more detail how deal with the major part of the energy consumption, especially when with regard to chemical industry and heavy industry, and that is upstream of our value chain. If you go to the next slide, and yes, coming back to our direct scope of activities, energy is, as I said, is it's of course it's a major item, building blocks. It's play a big part in the upstream part of the value chain. I already say that, but it's of course it's one key aspect in the manufacturing part of the value chain, as well as in the recycling and waste management and recycling part that is very critical to find a relevant business model for this industry. And especially in the manufacturing part, we have a lot of activity with regard to switch toward electrical powered manufacturing system, and in this let's say particular scope, there is a very major challenge to implement digital technologies to deal with this energy consumption and to optimize really this use of energy for the company, for the SMEs, and for the sector as a whole. And it's also a key aspect in the end of life and the recycling segment, where a major challenge today for plastic industry is to have a industrial solution for recycling, in particular with chemical recycling. And then we come, and at this point we come again to let's say heavy industry models, where energy can be a very critical item as well. but it's among the hot topic of today. So if you go to the next slide, Antonio, please. So we are, let's say, fully let's say, embedded in this among these 14 industrial ecosystem. Our cluster, our sector are connected to others, and I think to mobility, and we are really transversal sectors, and what we have been looking at in the past weeks and months is really to, according to the situation, to find a way to implement all the program coming from at European scale or at or level or national level in terms of circular economy as a pillar for recovery. And of course, among the major program that we are looking at very much is this Green Deal program, and this is the area where we have the last weeks organized seminar, workshops, and discussion with our members to connect this big program with let's say the ground level companies, SMEs, and see how to take benefit of this program to deal with the challenges of our industry. So with your next slide, you will see of course, something this is the current item of this Green Deal program. It's a very broad and very ambitious plan, and that is, let's say, very much relevant with our industry challenges. And if you go to the next slide, let's say, as a quick look, as I said, we have been and we are continuing. We had last week a seminar, a webinar with our colleagues from rubber industry in France. We are sharing some. We have some workshop on the topics. We are also part of a association of Polymer Processing Association, ECP4 in Europe, and we are working together to prepare let's say, initiatives and proposal in the next weeks. And we started to make some selection and to let's say identify the most let's say relevant topics for our companies. And this is what we are currently working on, and to in accordance and to let's say online with the situation of the companies and the expectation of the policymakers, of course. So this is example. I think many of our colleagues cluster are doing something similar, and just as discussed with Antonio, and I think it come back to yesterday's let's say presentation from the DG GROW and let's say the former session on S3 and the link between the European program and regional let's say initiative. Example again, what we have, it has started before the crisis last year, but we are currently let's say tailoring or customizing this initiative to the situation and to the need of our sectors with two regions. On left side, Hauts-de-France is a northern part of France region, and as part of their own smart specialization strategy, they have so-called REV3 let's say axis program, third industrial revolution initiative, and we have been working with the region and on the let's say the evolution of the value chain on different sectors, and building, construction, textile. And we have been working on plastics processing and plastic industry. And as you see, I think it's interesting is we have been working with on some kind of mapping of the major step of the value chain to quantify let's say the streams, and in terms of material, in terms of energy, in terms of and the stakeholders. First to set up the scene, and then to work on some scenarios for updating the value chain at regional scale. Of course, the industry is not limited to a region. It's clear for any kind of industry, but of course we have to. This is the relevant scale to implement some pilot cases and some new initiatives. So this initiative is interesting, I think, and I wanted to share with you how to think about on a very pragmatic way to revise or to update some value chain toward sustainability, toward let's say new economy, better economy, as said yesterday. Ula said yesterday. On the right side, it's a similar situation. It's in Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes, among our key region, and of course, again, plastics and have to deal. Circular economy is a major concern for years now, and we are currently connecting two, let's say, two initiatives. One purely at regional scale, that is devoted to raising awareness of let's say, circular economy to SMEs in our sectors, and so in terms of let's say, in terms of involvement of a pilot case, and it's really a voluntary. Let's say it's up to you to convince company to step forward in this trend, and to implement let's say practical cases. And so this program is starting this week. There will be a formal signature Thursday here, and it's a regional program included now in the Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes recovery plan, and it's connected, of course. Or of course, I don't know, but it's connected to what has been presented last weeks by the representative of French Ministry, c'est Plan de Relance, the recovery plan in France, and where there are different programs, sub-programs, and there is one devoted to let's say recycling and shorten the value chain to have, and plastic and packaging is among the topics. So there are now open calls for it, and so we have some project in progress on the matter, and we make our best to make it consistent all together. So this is example among others, but I wanted to share to you, and of course would be very pleased to have your comment and to listen to other initiatives in our field or connected field to improve ourselves. And thank you again for inviting me for this morning session.
Merci beaucoup, Patrick. You are a model for us. Okay, your cluster is a model for us, and you yourself. It's perfect for showing what clusters can do, what serious work is involved, and how you are linking with your regions and your national plans. So thank you very much. We will come back to you for sure.
Thank you.
And now it's time to introduce Athanasios Konstantopoulos. Hello, Athanasios. How are you?
Hi, Antonio. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you and see you.
All
are
right,
you well?
excellent. Well, you know, I've been better, let's say. It's been a very difficult time for me. I'm glad to be, at least for today, back and, you know, contributing. So, you know, thank you all for the invitation. We can, I think, move on.
Thank you, Athanasios. So I will share your presentation if you want. Okay, it's in the screen now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Today I am making a little bit different presentation than the actual, you know, spirit of this meeting. I will focus more on what I consider to be some disruptive technologies that will be able to provide a route for sustainability for energy-intensive industries. So if you like to go to next slide, please. We all know that we are facing grand challenges anyway in the so-called nexus of energy, food, water, climate change, and so on. These challenges are now being much more delicate to balance them, specifically due to the COVID disruptions. And we know that we have a struggle that it is being amplified continuously due to the crisis. If you move on, you will see that the high-level group, the next slide, please. The high-level group on energy-intensive industries has made a master plan. This was before the coronavirus, for a competitive transformation of energy-intensive industries and talking about a circular economy. So sustainability through circularity is, the name of the game, at least in theory. But when I talk about circularity, or when circularity comes to mind, these times I have to go a little bit back, really back in time. You go to the next slide, please. And I would like to remind, or maybe recall for those that don't know, that there is another cycle which is well rooted into the ancient Greek drama, the so-called tragic cycle. The tragic cycle starts with hybris. Hybris is the curious idea that we are entitled to freedom, carelessness, our lifestyle, that we are masters of the universe, either in society or in personal life, without having to pay the cost. According to the ancients, this is a major unethical act, and in our context means ignoring the grand challenges. Because we commit hybris, then the gods blind our minds, bringing the so-called ati. Ati is the act that we do to borrow from the future, to overexploit what is offered, what is provided, and then we go, become greedy and we overdo it. This means that we overconsume all resources that are available or that we have access to. Naturally, the third stage is the so-called nemesis. Nemesis is the rage and revenge of the gods, and this occurs due to conflicting forces of nature or society of individual. In our case, I think nemesis has names such as climate change, the epidemics, and what knows other crisis is lurking around. Eventually, we reach the stage of thesis, so-called distraction, and this is loss of resources, loss of privileges, and this means that we have an unsustainable society. This is where the tragedy, the tragic cycle closes, and there is only one request, the request for catharsis or lysis, which is the so-called resolution, and this is usually possible only by the intervention of Deus ex machina. That means we need to invent things, and this is what we have been doing in the last 10, 15 years. If you go to the next slide, we have been outlining an approach for sustainability and resilience via circularity and industrial symbiosis, which is rooted in using solar energy to make fuels for clean energy and sustainable mobility since 2002. This has been a very important activity in my research that has produced a lot of results, a lot of possibilities. And I would like to give a few examples tailored to the so-called energy-intensive industry. So if you go to the next slide, if we talk about refining, which is a major energy-intensive industry, we like to move on into an integrated synthesis of solar fuels and chemicals into installations that combine chemical reactions that we know, new chemical reactions that we invent with advanced material technologies, and essentially it allows us to make a polygeneration, to produce various fuels and chemicals, hydrogen, from that ammonia, fertilizers, hydrocarbons like methanol, DME, electricity, clean water, even metal salts and materials. So the refining of the future and this industry will have to encompass this approach of solar fuels, and we are very glad to announce that we are in advanced talks with a very major industrial group in the world to move on this technology towards the market. Next slide, please. Still, we have fossil fuel extraction that we rely on, but in our approach, we would like to address that by replacing fossil fuel extraction by waste valorization as well as fossil fuel upgrade. Again, with specific solar reactors, we can convert food, dairy, domestic kitchen waste, industrial organic waste into fuel and some aquatic phase. In addition, we can process plastic waste and depolymerize, put them back into the value chain, into the feed stream. And more important, we can offer now also a path out of this so-called post-coal or post-lignite or coal regions in transition initiatives, where we can actually convert lignite and coal into oil, into a liquid fuel. So we see this kind of technology also as playing an important transitional role towards getting away from fossil fuels, but doing it in an evolutionary fashion. If you go to the third slide, please. When we look at iron and steel, we have technologies that allows us to upgrade this waste with using aerosol technologies and in our pilot plants that can also be solar assisted. So we can go from metal waste to metal nanoparticles. This is very important because there is an enormous amount of metal waste that exists, and many of these metal waste include also components that are organic. So putting this all into a thermochemical process by which you produce energy and you recover also the metals in the form of nanoparticles could be an important component in the value chain. Moving on, in the next slide, please. I look at something so simple as paper. We are looking also at alternative raw materials. In that case, we have made papers from using rice husk with proper processing, and then this provides also another sustainable circular economy route for that industry. Finally, when we look at one of the most energy-intensive industries, cement manufacturing, which we are doing now, we are preparing a solar calciner, a calciner that not only allows a very controlled residence time and processing of the cement, but also it is closed with respect to CO2. So it allows to capture the CO2 that comes from the cement processing and use it into a subsequent stream for reusing it into making fuels, chemicals, and so on. So with this, I would like to come to a closure for this presentation, which is, as I mentioned, strictly technical. We know and we accept that circular economy is the route towards sustainability for energy-intensive industries. I claim that solar thermochemical technologies are an important enabler for this circular economy approach. I have provided examples from our research that are now advancing towards the market through a startup technology company that we have set up. And I make the pledge that we must create opportunities for proposals and initiatives to implement these technologies in practice, especially in collaboration with the energy-intensive industry ecosystem and the cluster network where it is embedded. For example, we could make an initiative for all the plastics that cannot be recycled, for all these waste materials that are being shipped in containers to China, and many other, available raw materials that are not waste, so that we can really make this realization for a green transition towards the future. So I close with my final conclusion that, in my opinion, solarization is a very disruptive path for sustainability in energy-intensive industries. I am a little bit disappointed that this is not covered in the actual reports that are being circulating. And like in many other cases, I think sometimes in order to predict the future, you have to invent it, and this is what we have been doing in the last year. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present to you this presentation.
You are very welcome, Athanasios. Thank you for sharing with us your proposal, your developments, and I think that there will be people that can hear and perhaps help you in advancing on that field. So we have heard our speakers. There are a lot of ideas on the table, and now it's time to hear the rest of the attendants. Questions, comments, new proposals. The floor is open. I am sure that there will be questions. Okay, are you there, Titus? Titus, sorry, Titus. I was thinking on. Are you there, Titus? Yes. I see that you are.
Yes, I am.
Okay, and now it seems far better than before. So I understand that you have been able to see the presentation also.
Yes, I managed to see your presentation as well.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, so one question for you. Are there published data about the energy intensive ecosystem that we could look for in the web? Where could we find some reports about who is involved and what kind of analysis are you developing on them?
Okay, so talking about energy industries, so the concept itself obviously was mentioned first time in industrial strategy that was published in March, and it was presented, I think, to the parliament talking about it. We are working now on putting it to present to the public as well, sort of more detail these ecosystems, but overall, obviously, it is. If we're talking about ecosystems, we should probably, if to simplify the concept and to introduce it, is we should probably think about value chains and go broader and wider. So so that's what basically ecosystems entail. But in terms of finding it online, this is something that we are working now, and it will be available, I hope, soon on European Commission's and DG GROW website.
Thank you very much. There are some questions in the chat. Emmanuel Robbins asked if there is it's a possibility to contact the speakers. I think that some of them has put the contact details on the presentation. It depends on them, okay, if they are willing to share the contacts or not, okay. But we will share the video, this video, the recording of the session, and also the presentations on the ECCP page where we publish all our morning session. And I see that Patrick is and Athanasios are sharing the contacts in the chat, okay? And
may I raise a question?
Yeah.
Good morning. Well, first of all, thanks for the very interesting talks. I have two basic questions, very general. One is about how capital intensive are these paths for the future. Do we need a lot of capital in this to really bring forward this new world? And who should invest on this? There is now this plan in Europe of resilience and recovery plan. Do we need really a lot of capital from centralized? Do we need it to be centralized, or can it be actually promoted by small investors, by the community at large, by people at homes? And how do you see the way forward to really implement these opportunities of circular economy and recycling and actually energy saving versus more efficient use? Thank you.
You are welcome, Jose Paulo. Who wants to answer?
Antonio, I can answer, at least as far as I can tell about the topics that I have mentioned. And my answer is that we have to make these technologies to be modular and distributed, because much of the raw material that we are after is actually dispersed throughout, a large geographical area. That being said, one has to also look at an optimization process by which there is an optimum size for these kind of technologies, which I would like to mention is not the same like in the traditional concentrated solar thermal technologies, which are geared towards producing steam for a very large, steam turbine to produce electricity. So once you make these transition in your state of mind, there are possibilities that one can come up with new and innovative designs of modular distributed systems that are aiming at processing this kind of raw/waste materials. Of course, there is an issue of capital in all of this because, like all disruptions, they require investing into a new infrastructure. But the actual advantage of this is that you are doing it only upstream. We are able to keep intact the entire investment that we have made into the petrochemicals, into the combustion engines, into anything else. So this is not a replacement of the entire value chain, for example, like in the case of electrification or in the case of hydrogen and so on, that is a very difficult transition to adopt. But this is an investment or a disruption that occurs upstream. You just replace your fossil hydrocarbons, your fossil carbon sources with synthetics that come from renewables, and then the rest stays intact. So this is the largest advantage of that approach.
Thank you, Athanasios. Patrick.
Yes, just a comment because I fully agree with Athanasios. Yes, the target about the target to be more modular and distributed and to let's say redesign the value chain on a relevant way, and it's especially true for recycling, and that is a fairly new part of the value chain, and where there is already a challenge to consider the good model. I think I didn't know the conclusion of the high-level group, but if it's this report is public, I would be interested to look to their analysis and see how they have considered this part of the value, let's say, end of life and recycling. Yes, I fully agree also with Athanasios regarding considering technologies as enablers, solar energy, for instance, as he mentioned. Digital, I mentioned it for manufacturing sector, where digital transformation can really a key enabler for let's say reducing the waste and reducing the consumption, and be more agile in terms of production. We have also we are considering for direct sector polymers, and we are considering biotech as a key technology for recycling. For instance, I mentioned chemical recycling, but there are different development in Europe to use biotechnologies to have let's say low capacity intensive system for this part of the value chain. And of course, there are the challenge to use renewable feedstock to remove fossil solutions. So we can really look to different building blocks to meet these challenges. So.
Thank you very much, Patrick. So
maybe just to add from me a couple of words, as mentioned, definitely the master plan, which was published in November last year by high-level group on energy intensive industries, is available online. So that's definitely easy to find. And if talking globally about energy intensive industries, that only the demonstration of sort of breakthrough technologies that will sort of power the greening of them is estimated to, the demonstration projects estimated to cost around 40 billion euros, and overall, the whole transition to sort of climate neutral world of 2050 that the EU is aiming at will be in hundreds of billions of euros for this ecosystem. So obviously it's a very capital intensive area of our economy. But obviously there you have, in terms of projects, huge diversity. Are we talking about building pipelines? Are we talking about starting, changing the processes in steel plants? Or we're talking about something much smaller scale in other cases. So obviously there are projects will be projects available of very different size, but overall challenge and overall size of the transition is very capital intensive.
Thank you for the comment. I see that there is a question from Kruta about where we are sharing. I'm sure that Nina can share with you soon the link to where we list all our morning session, and from every link you can go for the video and the presentations. Okay. There were also a comment from Frederick Loelk. Frederick, are you there? Can you make your question if you want?
Hello, I'm here.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah, the question was concerning coupling with the energy-related sector and the clusters that are working in that perspective. I see a lot of dependency on hydrogen, renewable energy, and one of the challenges we face in Flanders is to make that cross-sectoral view on the entire system amongst different clusters in Flanders. And I was wondering, how do you handle such a cross-sector coupling?
It's a very good question. I will let the speakers answer, but I have our own answer from the European Cluster Alliance. But Patrick, please.
Oh, I think it's a very relevant point to, especially for this topic, to be cross-link different ecosystem and let's say material driven cluster and energy cluster. We are working ourselves with Tenerdis in France. With I think tomorrow Avicen, Bianca Dragomir will be present. I think we have in the past different discussion to bridge and to work together on and to complement ourselves. Yes, and this is also something that could be pushed by the group, especially for the current challenge. Yes, challenges. Yes.
Thank you. I would say that this is precisely what we are trying to working on in this morning session, to link different areas of activities, interests, and value chains. Okay, and that's clearly critical for the industrial ecosystems. And so there are many references on how cluster can do that. Okay, we could look for the past years on the different InnoSub project linking, where the stress is to link different ecosystems, to link different value chains, to cross-sectorialize the projects and the activities. And so I think that fortunately this is part of our role, or the role of the cluster, to be able to go out to other clusters, other sectors, other key actors, not only clusters. Okay, as Athanasios called them, keystone agents. Okay, those agents that are situated between or sharing different ecosystems. Okay, and to work with that. So I don't know if that was what you were asking, or do you have references on that, Frederick, on Flanders?
It answered my questions. what we are doing here in Flanders is that we are trying to do what we call intercluster projects, in which we try to combine members of the energy-related cluster together with the members of the chemical cluster. But we see that it are quite vertical silos, which are having, we have trust within the vertical silo, but now we need to go to create trust between the silos, and there you have typical more competitive actions, since the energy-intensive industries are willing to buy energy from people that need to be in the same consortium. So we are still in the process of trying to gain trust between the silos, while we are already quite far in having created trust within the ecosystem of each of the silos, and that's not an easy task.
That will be very interesting to hear you in detail, how you are doing that and what are the challenges, Frederic.
Well, for example, we are starting with, let's say, trying to combine projects on a low TRL level, so trying to get the research centers doing that cross-sectoral research, because they are, let's say, somewhat easier to let them cooperate. And then we connect there the companies that are interested in the different subsegments. So one is more interested in the research on the energy part. One is more interested in the research in the energy intensive part. And then they get to know each other, and we are trying to build upon that ecosystem to then create further projects in which we would like to see that basic research turned into practice. But of course that takes time, and we had the presentation about the lack of time and the Greek tragedy that is happening. So we are trying to see how we can go as fast as possible given that situation. So we are now also creating already some more, let's say, projects where the people of the gas transport, so the DSO of gas transport, is going to see how we can move to synthetical fuels, how we can provide hydrogen by the energy sector. So we're trying to mix all those value streams and bring them together in what we call focal groups to create an overview on that ecosystem. But it are people who are not really, let's say, used to work together, so it takes time to build a trust platform between them.
Congratulations. Are your ideas or your proposals taking into account in the national or regional recovery plans? Because that is the topic for today, and it's a very interesting question. Are you delivering that proposals to your authorities? And
well, we sit together with the situation in Flanders is quite, let's say, particular in this sense that we are having our own department of innovation where we are sitting quite often together. So I have regular contacts with my colleague from the chemistry cluster, also with those of mobility and food, for example, because I'm coming from energy, so I'm quite broad. I'm one of those people who need to speak to everybody. But that, let's say, innovation part not necessarily connects always to the recovery or the recovery plans. So that's the challenge. We still have to make the connection between the innovation, let's say, policy within Flanders to the real industrial policy. But we are working on that, and we are already mentioned in some of the recovery plans, so it's not that they are neglecting us.
That's a very important challenge for now. As Ula told us yesterday, we need to be able to propose ideas, projects to the recovery plans, and to facilitate our regional or national network to write them down and to include them in their plans.
I totally agree.
But Patrick, I see that you wanted to comment.
No, just came to my mind that what we have been discussing within this ECRN, this is a chemical region network. I send you the link, and we had quite intensive discussions the past years how to connect, and to design new model for biorefineries and to organize all the production line, the use of feedstocks, the use of materials with a very integrated way. And Greenwind is very active in this field, and I think Greenwind is really a cluster that is bridging energy and chemical industries, but also in this is a specific topic, but where we have some experience, and to organize such an innovative way to connect the different challenges for specific sectors. But I'm sure that paper and pulp, I know that Packbridge in Sweden, for dealing with packaging, has a very strong focus on the paper industry, and of course, paper industry is very much also concerned about the way to think about factories or to a new generation of refineries or production systems, including management of energy, of course.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Patrick. It's time to close. I need to say thank you to Titas, Patrick and Athanasios, and every one of you. You have in the screen the rest of the month's agenda. So tomorrow we will speak about renewable energy. As Patrick said, Bianca Dragomir will be with us. I don't remember, sorry, the rest of the speakers. On Thursday, we will speak about health, and on Friday about textiles. So you are invited to join us. Thank you, everyone, and see you soon, I hope. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Antonio. Thank you all.
Bye.